Welcome to the ThunderCast, your martial athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and Jed Horton. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here because the ThunderCast is on the loose. Welcome back to another episode of the ThunderCast. I'm Russ Livingood, and with me, as always, every week, Jed Horton. Jed, good little break that we had a couple of weeks back, but we're back in the swing of it, trying to get this out, stuff with KD out every week, trying to bring all the content we can, and got a little news coming up on that front that we'll talk about later in the show. But everybody that is watching or listening to this right now, if you would, whatever platform you're on, make sure that you subscribe to the ThunderCast. Also, go over to ThunderCast.Online and bookmark that. We've got a lot of exciting stuff coming out around that August time frame over there. Jed, kind of feels like we just did this and we're back again. But before I get into anything, after I get a hello and some words from you, before we get into it, we've got to shout out our sponsors. But welcome back again.
Yeah, man. I feel like you and I just were together recently. You know, you take that long hiatus for vacation, and then now we're back at it, getting back together again every week. And there's always something to talk about. You know, it's summertime, you know, school's out, sports are done, but there are always things happening, you know, at on campus and in the background getting ready for the fall. So it seems like to me, I don't know about you, Russ, but with the kids and everything, it seems like summer gets shorter and shorter every year. It's just
it gets shorter, and this what we're doing kind of feels like work too. I thought we got off work at 5:00, but here we are. Right. Let's get a word from 304carwreck.com, Leasure Oliver. I've said this all along. They were here since day zero to help make this happen. So let's hear from them. If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
If you all can't see Russ's shirt, if you're all listening, you know, by a podcast or Spotify, Russ is repping Leasure Oliver PLLC swag. So, and in green too.
Yeah, and they did that on purpose. They made some Kelly green and white. As Kelly, you know, Kelly is depending on whoever makes that shirt makes their version of Kelly. So Leasure Oliver PLLC said, hey, we want to make some shirts, but we want to make them in Marshall, Kelly green, and white. So when people are repping us, they're also repping Marshall. And, you know, it's kind of the same reason that they're a sponsor of ours. Same reason Ignite.link is a sponsor of ours and Layer One Solution is a sponsor of ours. Marshall fans like to do business with Marshall fans, and we have some very good Marshall fans that are also sponsors. And that leads me into, Jed, how could we possibly have 5 things? I say this all the time. Well, we do. And it's because of Ignite.link that we're bringing these to you. So without further ado, here's a word from Ignite.link to lead us into our 5 things every herd fan needs to know this week. And now, here are at least 5 things every herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by Ignite.link, the Tri-State's premier IT management team. Jed, we're going to get it kicked off with what I thought was some pretty cool news. Head softball coach Morgan Zirkle collects the first hit ever in the new Athletes Unlimited Softball League. And not to be outdone with that, just a little bit later, hit the league's first inside the park home run. That first hit was a double to the gap, bounced to the wall. And, you know, later on, I think it was the next game. I don't think it was in the same game. Could have been. Hit the first inside the park home run. And as always, showing that Zirkle speed
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to catch that clip. I didn't watch the game, but I was able to catch the clip on social media somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty cool to see. It's always good to see your softball coach. She's not just coaching; she's still playing. So,
Yeah.
still picking up tips and tricks and creating that that community and being surrounding yourself with those folks in softball. That's got to help her as far as building contacts and for future players and things of that nature as she continues to coach the herd.
Yeah, and how many times are we going to see or say our head softball coach is better than your head softball coach when she's out there on the diamond? She was. I keep getting these notifications, and I keep saying snooze for an hour, and then 5 seconds later they pop back up. But yeah, I mean, out there on the diamond, she's done it all, and she continues to do it all, and we're hoping that success translates over on the coaching side as well on her still young career that she has started as a head coach now. And this sort of thing, in my opinion, lends itself to getting eyes on Marshall. When she does things like this, it makes players that are aspiring to play in college say, "Man, I want to be like Coach Zirkle. And maybe I'll just go play for Coach Zirkle." That sort of thing. So, love to see it. Love to see it. Number 2, Meredith Mayer. I thought this was pretty big news. Announces she is returning to Marshall for her final season for women's basketball. Was a huge part of that team stepping up 2 years ago, and then last year she was one of our main outside threats. So what do you think about Meredith coming back and announcing it this early so we know that she is back?
No, I think that's great. She, obviously sharpshooter from behind the arc, kind of an integral part of the team the year before when we made that championship run, integral part of the team last year. I think you would say, one of those cornerstone players over the last couple of years. And, that's great. There's, last year did not go the way that they wanted to go. We didn't want to go that way, but, they didn't want it to go that way even worse than we did. And, it's good to see a player like her, who's committed to Marshall and who's committed to coming back and writing some of those things from last year and improve upon those things. Because last year, you're talking, she's gone through 2 first-year head coaches 2 years in a row. And
three in 3 years.
3 in 3 years. Yeah, total. Yes. And so, you've got the highest of the highs and the low, not the lowest of the lows, but, they were definitely playing below their capability last year. The wins did not, really show the capability of that team. So this is a way for, this coming season to actually, improve upon the things that they were working on towards the end of last year and improving upon. So,
yeah,
no, that's great. You don't want to bleed your best players. You like to see them come back and be committed. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, they definitely picked up toward the end of the year. Kind of peaked right before tournament time with some really good games there at the very end of the season, and then made that very good run in the tournament at Sunbelt Conference. Here's what we got with Meredith. As a true freshman, she had 27 games played in the majority of them, but only 9.5 minutes, so right at a quarter of the game. And she really blossomed and stepped into a starting role 6 games into that sophomore season that we talked about. And minutes went up to 18.8 average over the year. Again, after those first 6 games, those minutes increased quite a bit. But she developed into our real big 3-point threat, 38.9 from behind the arc, and seemed to constantly hit the big ones when we needed it. Every time we were talking about well, we're behind. We really need to make a run here. It seemed like Mayer would hit maybe 2 or 3 threes, in a span of a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden we're right back in the game, or we've taken the lead. So we were expecting a lot from her this year. The minutes did go up again, 28.3 minutes a game. Points went up 10.3. Rebounds went up 4.9. Assists went up 1.5. Steals went up 1.5. Blocks went up 0.4. What went back a little bit was the shooting percentage. And, sometimes you'll see that. John Elmore is probably one of the most celebrated long distance guys we've had here. And I remember him having a cold streak, and his brother, Ott, said, "Hey, I think you're shooting toward the front of the rim. You need to shoot toward the back." And all of a sudden he caught fire. Sometimes it's just shooters need one little tweak, to stay hot. But what I thought was that she was known as our outside threat, and we lost our 2 point guards, and we bring in a new system, and we bring in a new, team, basically, except for a handful. And I think that just kind of caught up with her. They were out there on her. Things just were not there the way they were the previous year with Abby Beeman driving and kicking it back out to a wide open Mayer. So love to see her on her final year get back to that form. Not that she was bad. I mean, we're talking about 34.2% from behind the arc last year, but 39 to 34, it's a 5% drop off. Talk about, as many threes as she shot. If her percentage was up the year before, we're talking about, 3 to 6 more points a game. Yeah. But really like to see her cap off her career here, finally have some stability where same coach, same system is in place 2 years in a row. And, I like the fact that she's a local kid from up in Fairmont, so right here in West Virginia. But I think that her being a fan favorite, her producing on the court, it's just great to have her back, and you can help build around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, number 3, the House versus NCAA settlement was officially approved. So what does that mean for Marshall? There may be people listening or watching right now that have zero idea what we're talking about with House versus NCAA. So basically, if I don't screw this up too bad, players are supposed to have a certain amount of rights, I guess. It's like, well, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? And NIL was a big part of that. And you saw how that kind of exploded. Well, the House versus NCAA settlement, they are going to go back and pay these athletes from the last, I don't know how many years. I can't remember where it's going to start. Maybe it's
yeah, according to this, I pulled it up here. So you competed from June 15th, 2016 to November 3rd, 2023. Yeah.
So from the June 16th, and what this is going to be is $2.8 billion in back pay to ex-athletes, $20 billion plus in revenue share. And I think that got capped at 20.5 million per team, if I'm remembering correctly. But there's new roster rules and things like that. And I have these that I'd saved, and I'm not going to go through every sport. Like, I don't think we need to talk about tumbling and equestrian and things like that we don't sponsor here. But let's just talk about the big ones. Football, the old limit was 85, and now the new limit is 105. So that's 20 additional. And you start talking about baseball, for instance. The old limit was 11.7. And you had these partial scholarships, and what that didn't mean that 11 were going to get full and one person was going to get 0.7. Well, you could take that money for 11.7 and distribute it amongst your entire roster. Now the new limit is 34 on your baseball squad. So basketball, the same thing. Men had 13. The new limit is 15. Women always had 15. And softball was 12. Now there's 25. So there's these new limits here. And they have also kind of handed down and said, okay, so here's the mix between 75 and 85% of your revenue to do this revenue sharing can be spent on football. And then basketball makes up the next, and I think it's like 10 to 15% or something like that. And then all other sports split the rest of that. So you're going to see a lot of the haves and have-nots out there, which we've seen growing further and further apart anyway. Now you're going to have these schools with the deep pockets that can just legitimately just pay players, and they can field whatever football team they want if they're splitting all this revenue and now getting to say, well, let's put all 85% into football because that's where our revenue comes from. Then you're going to lose some of the other sports. I think Michigan has already taken, I heard Paul Swan say Michigan has already taken a couple of teams out of the rotation. They're just not going to replace them. There's some sports at different colleges that are going to go away, and I think that's horrible. But we could talk for 8 hours just on this. What's it mean for Marshall? I think you're going to see things like the Shoey deck that they were talking about. You know, the revenue from that has already been announced that it's going to go toward NIL. You know, the Thunder Trust is anchoring that. Athletes Unlimited, that runs the Thunder Trust. And you're going to see that benefit not only football, but through that model, you're going to see it benefit basketball and then the other sports. So things like that, us small colleges and universities, not just the G5, but, you know, even further when you start looking around FCS and all that, they're going to have to get very creative and find ways to get revenue to come in, because otherwise we're all going to just get left even further behind than what it is right now.
Yeah, and I think this has been an ongoing play for years now.
Yeah.
To try to separate, you know, the quote unquote P5, P4 from the G5. I mean, that's what they're. It's the agenda has not been, you know, hidden from anybody and what they're trying to do, and this is just another step in that direction. Because a school like Marshall, you know, a school like Ohio University, or a school, you know, you pick one, just doesn't have the enrollment size and the money coming in from those, you know, from those endeavors to be able to pay. I mean, the cap is $20.5 million. You know, what is Marshall's budget? I don't think it even hit their total of their athletic budget. Doesn't even hit 40.
Yeah, it was like 34 and then 36. I think it went up to last year or something.
And that's Marshall's budget. I mean, that's not, you know,
that's not football. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's just the total budget. So there's not $20.5 million in there that's going to, you know, so a school like Marshall's not going to hit that cap.
Yeah. And you look at these, you know, Big Ten and SEC with their media rights deals and how much money's coming in. And I mean, even the Big 12, the ACC, the media is just absolutely ridiculous. So they can just continue to do whatever they want. Whereas Marshall is around that $2.5 million or so for the Sun Belt Conference. It's not on par, and it's going to continue to be not on par. And you're either going to see the NCAA disband and this all break away, and there be, you know, two different leagues again. You know, I don't know. And I say again, I know there's already FBS and FCS, but I mean, amongst the FBS right now, it would split. And you know, you look at some of these teams that have just come up, you know, that are coming up this year. We've got 136 football teams now in FBS, and they step up and they have to pay so much money to enter a league, and they have to pay, or a conference, they have to pay so much money maybe to leave their old conference. They had to pay money to move up to the NCAA. They had to pay them. Now they're looking at having to do this. It's insane.
Yeah, it is. And it's on purpose. And so, to compete in this stage, we're going to have to do some unique things, the shoey deck, like you mentioned, there's going to have to be some things that is going to, help us compete and out edge our peers. Right. So first and foremost, the Sun Belt, so first and foremost, we've got to out recruit our conference mates. Right. And then, so not just G5 as a whole, but out recruit our conference mates and things of that nature. And then, because, we're not going to compete against Ohio State. That's just two different levels. That's not, we're not going to be able financially to compete at that level, but we can compete at the Sun Belt. And, and as everyone knows, Sun Belt's a very competitive conference. You still deal with things like with kids who want to drop down so they can actually get playing time.
Sure.
At what point getting paid $50K a year to ride the bench for 5 years, at what point is that worth it to a kid? Yeah, you may be able to get some money, but you never make it past a practice squad, but you may make money, make a little bit of money coming down and then get a lot of playing time. So we're still going to be able to compete in that. I don't think we're going to, the disparity is going to be so great that we can't have competitive games against P5 schools. But it's, that's what this whole effort is to just make that divide greater.
And Jed, why did I include this on a 5 things? Well, what have we been, what drum have we been beating since the ThunderCast started? The Big Green. And what better way, since the Big Green funds scholarships, is to fund the Big Green through our donations right now. So we have a lot of people that have been doing the 110%. And, the Big Green has been giving out some very cool prizes each month for donors that do that. You could enter it into some very cool drawings. But there are people maybe watching right now, maybe listening right now, and they're not a Big Green member. And maybe they still have season tickets, but they're not a Big Green member. You can join for as little as $5 a month. And joining the Big Green for $5 a month, you can get that $5 back at some of the places you're already frequenting as businesses right here in the tri-state area. We talk about food all the time. I'll name a couple of these businesses. They're not sponsored. I'm not doing that for any reason to other than to say that they're Big Green members. But you can go to Tik Tok Tire right across from the end zone and get work done on your car, and you can save money as a Big Green member. And you would probably get your $60 back over the course of a year if you go there and get tires and a few oil changes and things like that throughout the year. You'd probably come real close just from that. And I'm not saying that because they asked me to. I'm just giving an example. You can go down. I use it all the time because I've got 3 kids. You've got 3 kids. How often do kids say, can we go get ice cream? Well, if you go support Austin's, which, they're locally owned, they're family owned for decades, they take 10% off of your meal. And so if you go there and get some ice cream, you get 10% off. They are doing that to reward Big Green members. It cuts into their profit, but they're doing that because they want to support the Big Green. If we support the Big Green, we will get our money back. If you're even as a $5 a month member, that money goes a long way. So I urge everybody on here. We have, give or take every year, 3,000 Big Green members. And we have people that will say, well, there was only 20,000 in the stadium, talking about a football game.
Yeah.
And that's kind of around that benchmark. If it's below that, the crowd wasn't that good. If it's above that, it's a pretty decent crowd. And then, of course, getting up to 28 to 30,000 is like, man, that was a great crowd. Think about that. We have 3,000 Big Green members, 20,000 for a so-so crowd. That's 17,000 people that need to be Big Green members.
Yeah.
And it's not that, hey, I've got to give $10,000, I've got to give $5,000. $5 a month is all you got to do. And this is the sort of thing that can help us do exactly what you're talking about, is compete amongst the Sun Belt, winning conference titles. And it's not just going to football. The Big Green supports scholarships across every sport at Marshall. You know, they're going to help softball. They're going to help women's basketball. They're going to help swim and dive, both golf teams, track and field for both teams, all those sports. And we need to do our job as herd fans and find that $5 a month that we can join the Big Green, and also tell our friends, tell our family members, tell our neighbors, tell everybody, so we can grow this and we can compete, or we're going to get left behind again.
Yeah, and you're right, and it's all of us pitching in. You know, if you attend or even watch Marshall sports on TV, you know, ESPN Plus. For those of you who are not local, you know, even if it's just that $5 a month, that's something that's going to the scholarships. You know, because there's roster increases is you know, as part of this whole this settlement, and so those are going to need to be funded. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're a big Marshall fan, I mean, $5 a month is I mean, you won't even notice it, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
and again, like I said, you can get that back, but you could even make money off of that if you're already going to these places. You know, if you're already eating it at oh, help me out, Huntington Ale House. You know, if you're already eating at Austin's Ice Cream, if you're already going to Tik Tok and you're not a Big Green member, you're basically, all you have to do, if it's 10%, is spend $600 a year at those places. And that's not a lot of money when you're talking about auto care. And that's not the only thing. It's not just restaurants and TikTok Tire. Get on the Big Green's website, go to their Herd Perks page, and see all the businesses. And, you know, if you're a business owner, sign your business up. It's definitely needed. And just do the math. If 20,000 additional fans, which we already said, you know, we have 23 at some games, and we have 3,000 Big Green members right now. If 20,000 additional fans and or businesses joined the Big Green only at the $60 a year, that's $1.2 million again, funding scholarships. And we severely need that right now.
Yep, absolutely. I pulled up the list here, Russ, and I'm not going to rattle off everybody, but I mean, I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Pick two from each category. Give me two restaurants.
Yeah, first. So you've got Calamity J, you got Central City Cafe, heck, Dairy Queen on Fifth Avenue, La Familia, Marco's Pizza, the Peddler, Pita Pit, on Hospitality, Hanks. You know, if you like Hanks or St. Mark's Bar, Taps at Heritage. Union, obviously, Glen Sporting Goods, Jeff's Bike Shop, you know, 10% off. East End Body Shop, Pro Tent, TikTok Tire, Revival. So it's not just TikTok Tire. You know, Archer's Flowers, Skeffington's. You guys, you know, go get you tux for your wedding, for your buddy's wedding. Well, 10% off. You know, A to Z Rentals, El Haj Salon and Spa, 10% off. For those of you in Beckley, West Virginia, the Kilted Barber, 1 complimentary beer and shampoo with haircut.
Yeah.
So even for those of you in the Beckley area, Victor's Cleaners, you know, and I just was, you know, just kind of picking and choosing out of here, just scrolling the list.
Yeah.
And those are just a few examples of people that are participating. And again, like Russ said, they're taking that, you know, offering you that discount. So you sign up to be a Big Green member. So in essence, what's happening is they're paying for your donation if you utilize their services.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, all they're asking for is the minimum. If you can do more, great. That's awesome. But if all you can do is $5 a month, do the $5 a month, set it and forget it. And, you know, be a small part in helping Marshall fund their athletes.
If you need help, getting set up with the Big Green. It's at Russ Living Good on Twitter. Hit me up there. If you see me on Facebook, it's again just Russ Living Good, but send me a message on there. DM the Thundercast account. KD runs it over on Twitter. Does an amazing job with that. We'll help you. But I mean, you can just call the Big Green office. Go to the Big Green's website. And Jed, you've got that up right now. Tell everybody what that website is.
I had it up here, but let me. I'll put it right back up because I know if you go to, I mean, you can get to it from Herd Zone.
Herd Zone, yeah.
You can get to it from Herd Zone. There's a Big Green button that you can click, and it's marshallbiggreen.org.
Yep.
There's a big donate now button. And so what that does is that takes you to the basically where you buy your tickets, that same website that hosts buying your tickets. And then you can just pick the 2025 Marshall Athletics Fund. Also on that page is all the other things like the quarterback club, the kids club membership, and those kind of things. But you just select the 2025 Marshall Athletic Fund, and then you can set up your donation level.
Yeah, and from that website, over 430 student athletes, 18 D1 sports. And if you take that 430, think of the scholarships, those amounts, and 430, and that'll tell you where we're at on what we need to fund. And we can do it, but we need help. So, Jeb, we spent a lot of time on that, but I just thought it was important to kind of drive home due to this House versus NCAA. Who wants to see softball and tennis and golf on both sports and track and field for both men and women go away just so we can continue to get the revenue that we need out of football, because that's the big one with ticket sales. I don't want to see that. I'm a big fan of all those sports. It's great to go watch, and you want to see our teams compete, and we really need to do our job. So I wanted to drive that home. A lot of talk on that. Sorry we went so long, but let's get into some more stuff. Number 4 just happened today. Cornelius Jackson's contract has been extended through 2030 for men's basketball. Thoughts on that?
I view that as a positive thing, and I'll tell you why. There's now consistency, right, in a coach. So when Coach Jackson and his team are recruiting players to come here, hey, I'm going to be your coach from. Well, if you recruit somebody who's a freshman this year, Coach Jackson's going to be your coach pretty much all the way through. Coach Jackson, I think, proved himself this past year in what he can do with a limited roster, having to bring kids out of the portal and build a team around a few key cornerstone players. Right, we had a couple key cornerstone players that we had, but there was a lot of big question marks. And I thought Coach Jackson did a great job in putting that team together, and then watching that team improve over the course of the season. I think he's earned it, and as long as he can continue to improve and bring this team forward, get a few recruiting cycles in under his belt, I think we're going to see some really good things. So, I view this personally. Maybe some people feel differently. I feel like this is a positive thing for the basketball program.
I think it's overwhelming positive. Look at the success he had in year 1. And, there were some people that was like, well, he's coming from within the program. I wish we would do a true national search. And what they mean is, I wish they would bring in somebody that's not already here, but he kept a little bit of that stability and that martial flair. I mean, he played here. He was a Herd legend playing here. He's a local guy from Oak Hill. He knows the area. Everyone loves him. The only thing that I've ever heard about Coach Jackson that made me go was when he was on this show and he told me that he put ketchup on spaghetti. And I hope he's listening, because we talked about that for a while, and it's a thing his players like to rag him about. But he did a great job. 20 wins that first season. Excitement with the basketball squad. You just like to see him continue to navigate this crazy NIL world where you get these players and you bring them in and you have success, and then you got to do it all over again the very next year. But I think this is a great deal to get him here. He wants to be here. How many times have we heard that over the past 6-7 months now? Everybody talking about, we need people that want to be here. We need people that want to be here. He wanted to be here. He's always wanted to be here. He's where he wants to be. He had success. Now you can build on that, like you said, when you're bringing in these recruits of, well, the coach is not on the second of his 3-year deal or the second of his 2-year deal with an option or anything like that. You say, we've got a head coach that's going to be here under contract through 2030. So that provides that stability and allows you to continue recruiting and building your program without players going, well, I don't know. There's so much unknown. Is he going to be there? Is he not? Good deal on my end.
Yep.
All right, number 5, more of an announcement from the Thundercast than anything. Position group breakdowns are back. You will see that come up depending on when you're watching this show. It may already be uploaded, but KD and I started with the head coach and the coaching staff, and that episode will probably be on Friday of this week. And then we're going to have a new position group every week, and leading into a season preview episode to that first week before we face Georgia, when we do the preview for that game. So starting now, we are getting that close to football season, man. It feels good. We started going through there and doing those, and it brought back memories. This is now, we did it in 2022, 2023, 2024. This is our 4th year now doing these position group breakdowns. And it brought back memories of doing that from the year before and all that. But it just, now it's regimented. Every week we're going to have something leading up to football about this roster and about this team. So I'm looking forward to it. Hope the fans are. Hope you are, Jed. I know you like to you're a host on here, but you're not on the position group breakdowns because that's KD's deal. But I know you like to listen and watch those just like every other fan, because you're a Herd fan. So
yep. I don't listen to our episodes, Russ, but I do listen to yours and KD's. So
yeah.
But no, it's always good. That's what attracted me to it to the first place was listening. So it's always good when you and KD get together and do those. So I know those are a big hit for everybody. So excited for those to get started.
Yeah. Well, Friday, you should be seeing that. Again, if you subscribe, you'll get notifications on it as soon as these episodes are posted. Jed, that does it for a 5 things every Herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by Ignite.link.
And every week, there's always 5.
At least 5.
That's true. Yeah. Generally, there's more. So, no, that's great. No, it's always good to get caught up with what's going on around the Herd, even though sports aren't in session, school's not in session. So always things to talk about. Speaking of which, I say let's take it around the Herd.
Let's do it. And now, Layer 1 Solutions, your experts in business connectivity infrastructure, takes you around the Herd.
We're going to start with volleyball, and the 2025 schedule is now out.
Yeah, so I've got that pulled up here, and let's just talk about it. The exhibition is going to be the first one green and white scrimmage. It's going to be August 16th. Of course, that is at home. So August 16th, mid-August, right around that time that you're going to see women's soccer and men's soccer firing back up. This is the start of our season. You're going to get right into volleyball. And then August 22nd, we're going to be at Ohio again. That's under the exhibition. Regular season starts August 29th. That is, let's see, a double header. And then August the 30th, we go to Radford. And then seeing in September, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times you can see the ladies play at the Henderson Center in September. And then 1, 2, 3 times in October. So October, they're going to be hitting the road a lot. Mm-hmm. So if you want to go see them and you want to go support them, and it's a great family time because I've taken my kids over there and they absolutely love it. September is that sweet spot where you're going to be able to get some people over there. But the home opener, doubleheader August 29th, if you're not traveling down to Georgia and you're going to be here for the concert that's on August the 30th, head over and see the volleyball team open up the season, support the ladies, and you're going to want to see them in September before that October road trip hits. And then in November, there's also 3 times that you can see them early or late in the season as well.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities once fall comes up. Not just with football, but lots of opportunities to watch some herd sports. Yeah. So swinging over to baseball here, we got an outfielder, Evan Batone. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. He is a transfer from Akron.
Yeah, and so here's the deal. He is a leadoff center fielder, and he will be replacing Cam Harthen, who was a leadoff center fielder. Now, as this year went along, Harthen kind of slid further down the batting order. But he started out the year as our leadoff man, and he was center fielder. And what you may or may not know about him is this dude rarely ever struck out. And I've got his stats up here, and I just wanted to tell you now. This is about Cam Harthen. I want to preface why we got Evan Batone. Again, I hope I'm saying that correctly as well. In 2023. In 32 games, Harthen had 9 walks and only 4 strikeouts. The next season, he had 13 walks and 13 strikeouts. Last season, 17 walks, 20 strikeouts. For his career at Marshall in 3 seasons, 39 walks, 37 strikeouts. So you see Batone. And, I'm looking at this. Harthen, I said replacing him. Harthen may have another year. So it may not be a replace. I don't know exactly how it is. I hate that I said that, and I'm looking, he's only had 3 years. I was under the impression that he was exhausting his eligibility. But you're bringing in a guy, an Evan Batone, that if you hear his stats, he is like a carbon copy of Harthen. Hard to strike out. He had 29 walks and 51 strikeouts as a first-year player at Akron. But last year, 22 strikeouts and only 22 walks and only 32 strikeouts, hit .315. Harthen was up there 320 something the year before. His batting average fell down a little bit this year. The walks and the strikeouts didn't change. It was just those batted balls were not dropping in like they did the year before. Batone was getting all those balls to drop in. He's a speedy guy. He's going to cover a lot of ground in center field. He's going to be creating havoc on the base path. So he's good to have. And I hope that we're going to have Harthen and Batone. Now that I look at it, I thought right up until I looked at these stats a second time that we were losing Harthen, and that's why we went out and got Batone. So it'd be good to have both of those up near the top of the lineup, two speedy contact guys that are hard to strike out and always getting on base. When you're getting on base at 390, like Batone was, and the year before that, 413, that plays. When you were on base, that's the name of the game to get driven in. So it doesn't matter if you get there via walk or a single and you get on base, it's the same deal. So great pickup from Akron.
Yep. Well, sprinting on over to track and field, we received a transfer from Anthony Belcher, who is a Poca native and a West Virginia State transfer. And then we've got a commitment from Eric Del Tordo out of Solon, Ohio.
Yeah, I don't know much about Del Torto, but in the commitment announcement on Twitter, I saw that at West Virginia State, Belcher was a conference champion. He looked like, from his picture, big guy, so I'm assuming, he's doing the hammer throw and shot and things like that. But yeah, love to see this kind of movement here where we're picking up transfers and especially conference champions. I don't care if they're at West Virginia State or somewhere else. If you can throw, you can throw. If you can run, you can run. If you can hurdle, you can hurdle. So, but yeah, another couple of pickups and just continue to rebuild that men's roster since we started over in 2022, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and making good progress. It's kind of funny. We talked about last week during our mailbag episode talking about football transfers. Do we expect to get any transfers in? And well, we did.
Yeah.
As we talked about, those do tend to trickle in. So we've got a few. We got a wide receiver, Adrian Norton, transfers from Akron. Looks like we're pulling a couple people from Akron. And then we picked up several commitments for 2026. This was over the weekend. We got wide receiver Brendan Chambers, who's 6'4", 180 pounds, out of Kinston, North Carolina. Wide receiver Jalen Taylor, 6'1", 185 pounds, out of Oxford. Then defensive back Tristan Lester, 5'10", 193 pounds, out of Milton, Georgia.
Yeah, so I'll get to the high school players in a minute, but I want to talk about Adrian Norton. He had a breakout year last year at Akron. As a freshman, he only had 9 receptions, no touchdowns. Last year, that changed. 43 receptions, 7 touchdowns, 831 yards on those 43 receptions, 19.3 yards per catch. So the dude is out there stretching the field. He's scoring a lot. This is a great weapon that we have added to the wide receiver room. Again, wide receiver room was decimated. We brought in an all new, basically, receiving staff. I know there's a couple of holdovers, but it's mainly all brand new. And this is a big addition. He is not going to be that 6'5" guy. See what his height and weight is here. 6'1", 190. So he's going to be a speedster and a guy that's stretching the field, but not going to be that replacing Fitzgerald out on the Fitzpatrick. I'm sorry. Yeah. I had Fitzgerald on the brain because we also offered Marcus Fitzgerald's son this week, but he wasn't listed on there because he's not a commit yet. But not going to be replacing Fitzpatrick at 6'5" and everything. But when you got a guy that is getting 19.3 yards per catch and he's scoring 7 times for you, that plays, brother. That plays.
That does play. Absolutely.
The high school guys picked up another couple of wide receivers. Brendan Chambers, already 6'4", 185. Another site had him listed as 6'3", 170. So obviously that was outdated. He's grown a little bit, and by the time he gets here and gets into a round-the-clock nutrition plan and in the weight room and things like that, at 6'4", he's got some room to fill out that body and be a big physical wide receiver. Jalen Taylor, 6'1", 185 out of Oxford, Alabama. He's getting a lot of press for one of the best wide receivers in the state of Alabama. And then defensive back Tristan Lester, 5'10", 193. He comes from a good athletic background. His dad was a fullback in the NFL. So real good. Had camp over the weekend, and that's kind of what led to this. You had camp, and I'm assuming these guys were there, talked to the coaches, saw the facilities, that sort of thing, gave them a hard commit. So it's not signing day yet, but getting some commitments here is a good sign. And this staff is doing some work and getting some people in here on the roster. And again, Norton, who's already in that college body, is a huge addition.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's like you said, big pickup. And according to our mailbag last week, would we get any kind of shakers and movers in the off season? Well, I think we got one. So
there you go. There you go. We're not done. I imagine we're going to do some more of this over the summer. I don't know, like I said on the mailbag, don't know that we're going to get some stud quarterback that's going to upset the entire room pecking order the way it is right now. But I feel like it's a stud wide receiver, 7 touchdowns and 19.3 yards per catch. That plays.
That plays. Absolutely. Well, Russ, that wraps up Around the Herd, brought to you by Layer 1 Solutions.
Jed, quick episode. It's still 51 minutes and counting, but there was a lot that happened again this week on a short turnaround from us. And again, you're going to see more content coming out from us, even in a day or so. You're going to see that first position group breakdown series episode be published.
Yeah.
You got anything else before I take us out of here?
Nope. That's all I've got for this week.
All right. Well, whether you see us at the Jack, whether you see us at the Joan, or whether you see us at the Cam, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, "Go Herd." It's the ThunderCast.
Go Herd.